Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions concerning this Rolex Certified Pre-Owned Oyster Perpetual Milgauss. Of course, this is the third generation Rolex Milgauss. The model 116400 that debuted back in 2007 represented the rebirth of a model that had been dormant and out of the catalog since the late 1980s. Replacing the 1019 Milgauss, the 116400 introduced the latest generation of the movement enclosed in a soft iron cage and the latest aesthetic in the evolution of Rolex's long-running technician and scientist's watch. So the Milgauss, in its latest iteration, is a 40mm 904L stainless steel watch. We'll talk about that in just a moment. The watch features a 40mm diameter, a thickness in profile of 13.4 millimeters. It is a very close match between the lug-to-lug dimension of the case across the wrist, which is 49.2 millimeters, and the end-link to end-link dimension, which is only fractionally more at 49.5. So that's the total distance, 49.5 millimeters across the wrist. It has a 20 millimeter spacing in between the lugs. Of course, this model debuted in 2007, and it was also discontinued in 2014 with the arrival of the Z Blue. And a lot of folks would say that the blue dial and the white dial are the most unusual and provocative of the modern Milgauss series. I'll take my glove off for just a moment so you can actually see my wrist and see this watch on a human forearm. Now you can see it's nicely sized. It's substantial, but it's not so massive that I couldn't see this wearing well on a wrist my size. So my wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference. Let's take a look down the barrel. You can see the lugs are inboard of the edge of my wrist. In terms of the cuff shot, you can imagine this easily sliding underneath the dress cuff. It's not an ultra-thin watch, but it's also not that thick either. Over the top always exaggerates the width of the watch, but you can see the lugs are still a little bit inboard of the edge of my wrist. So I would say a wrist as small as 15 centimeters circumference could wear this watch well. I'll bring back my gloved hand and we'll take a closer look here. So I mentioned 904L steel initially, and I think it's important to discuss that in more depth. Rolex calls it oyster steel. It's been used since the late 1980s on Rolex models, and it is essentially a highly corrosion-resistant stainless. 316 stainless steel is sometimes subject to corrosion if you expose it to sweat or sea salt or certain kinds of industrial acids and don't rinse it. This type of stainless is truly stainless and does not need to be rinsed under those severe use cases. Now the watch does feature a twin lock screw down crown. You can tell it's a twin lock in steel because it has that little slash under the crown, and a screwed-in case back. And very few Rolex watches feature model-specific or model-distinctive text on the case back. With the Milgauss, you do have such a distinctive case back, letting you know that there's something special inside. Now, all of this makes the watch 100 meters water-resistant too, so it's safe for swimming. We have an oyster-style bracelet with polished centers, polished outer faces, satin shoulders. There's a conforming end link to mate it cleanly to the case, and then the bracelet tapers down towards the clasp. If you look, you can see we have removable links on both sides that are fixed in place using screws, so you can fine-tune the fit that way. There's also another way inside the clasp, Rolex Easy Link. So you have a snap-in, snap-out, tool-free 5mm adjustment system if you want to fine-tune the fit without using a tool. And then you can see inside the clasp, there are 3 pairs of divots that allow you to use your strap tool to dismount the spring bar and change the anchoring point of the bracelet inside the clasp. Now, it's commonly known that the 116900 Air King is a mechanical and body double of the Milgauss. And you may ask, what's the difference aside from the obvious difference on the dial side? The Milgauss 116400 is a slightly more luxurious watch, and you'll notice that particularly in how the bracelet and the clasp are finished. The Milgauss is the more upscale of the two related models. Now, inside we have this spring-loaded lift lock system with a beacon hook. Here's the hook right here, and they snap together, so you actually have to lift and unlock this clasp. It's not a friction fit system. It does have a latch. The case is simple, and as you can see, it's an oyster profile. Everything here is polished, case flanks and lug hoods, and you'll note it's not the super case that we've grown to know on the Sea Dwellers, the GMTs, the Explorer 2s, and the Submariners. This is actually a very fluid, compound curved case that has quite a bit of nuance, and if you look at the lugs end on, they're even fairly narrow. The dial is something else. It's not silver white. It is truly white. a white lacquer with a combination of orange and black printing. It's high impact visually. Orange luminova. Note that there are two colors of lumen on this dial, an unusual aesthetic for a Rolex. Also, what may seem like the height of postmodernism, the orange lightning bolt seconds hand, actually draws on the first generation of the Milgauss from the mid-1950s, which had the same lightning style seconds hand to remind you of the association between this watch and those who work with high-powered electronics. So you can see the indices themselves are all blackened for contrast. The hands in the Rolex 5-point coronet are white gold, so they won't oxidize or tarnish. Let's do a lume shot now. As promised, the lume is slightly different on the indices and the hands, and you can see it's a function of brightness because of the colors used. The watch does have a hacking or stop seconds function. So you were able to, if you wish, stop the seconds hand, right at 12, and then synchronize the watch to a reference time. Inside the case, we have Rolex caliber 3131, which is a bidirectional automatic winder with a 4 Hz beat rate, 31 joules, stop seconds, a 48-hour power reserve. It also features a full balance bridge with a free-sprung balance for shock tolerance and a Breguet overcoil hairspring shaped by hand so that in every physical position, the watch is a very consistent timekeeper, which is why this movement 5-position adjusted has earned a Swiss COSC Swiss chronometer certification. But there's something else worth mentioning, which is that this movement, like many modern Rolex movements, features a blue oxidized niobium zirconium hairspring, an alloy Rolex calls Parachrom Blue, which is highly anti-magnetic. Combine that anti-magnetic hairspring with an anti-magnetic escapement, and then the soft iron cage that is paramagnetic. It attracts magnetism. Now, why is that? That sounds counterintuitive. Because it will grab and hold the magnetic field lines, and it will channel those magnetic field lines around the hairspring and the movement. That is why paramagnetic is used. And so you've got all of those anti-magnetic features inherent in the basic Rolex automatic caliber, but you also have the soft iron cage, which is a heritage element from the very first Milgauss, which makes this marginally more magnetically resistant than other Rolex anti-magnetic sports watch references, and that is the modern Milgauss. The movement is 28.5 millimeters in diameter, and it is a super silent winder, one of the quietest and smoothest bidirectional winders you will encounter. So reach out to Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase and pricing details. Rolex Certified Pre-Owned watches are backed and authenticated by Rolex. Should any reconditioning be necessary, it will be to a Rolex Certified standard, and any parts invested Rolex Factory Original. Should the initial retail box, paper, and accessory set still accompany the watch, it will be included with the sale. But no matter what, a certified pre-owned box and paper set starts with an outer box, a leatherette travel pouch with suede lining, a warranty card that embodies the 2-year globally valid Rolex-backed warranty. Note this is not a retail warranty, but backed by Rolex and actionable at any of its authorized points of sales and service. A leatherette wallet includes the warranty terms and conditions manual, a holographic hang tag marks this as a certified pre-owned Rolex watch, and a manual details Rolex's values as a company, the certified pre-owned program, care, feeding, service, and use of your Rolex, locations of points of sales and service, and details of Rolex.com. Rolex certified pre-owned watches are backed only by Rolex.